Welcome to the Local Agent Podcast, episode 11. I took out my notebook here because investment strategy I never really heard of.
Student housing, right? A lot of people
Asking
do it.
who's-
A lot of people do it and like it. Every investment property that I want to buy, I need to put at least 20% down. However, if I'm a new investor, so buy a house using primary residence financing, if you can put sometimes nothing down, you can even put 3% down. You can live there for a year, and then you can go and buy another house up to 10 times. When it comes to long-term rentals, I want 100% return in 4 years. Not included, and that's just on cash flow, right? That doesn't include equity, pay down, appreciation, because most people are just thinking, I'm gonna buy a house where I'm gonna live at. Had I known about this strategy, I wouldn't have bought this house. I would have bought a bunch of investment properties, lived there for a year, then move and kept moving. And then eventually I would buy my final house. Definitely recommend partnering up with Realtor, right? They're literally gonna do all the groundwork for you. Do not invest money that you cannot afford to lose.
Welcome to the Local Agent Podcast, episode 11. Guys, today is a little bit special. Actually, very special. We got our second investor. If you could sort of introduce yourself for me.
Hey guys, my name is Javier Gonzalez. I'm a loan officer and real estate investor. I've been in the real estate business for the past 7 years. I've been in the financial industry for the past 10 years, and I've been investing in real estate. Bought my first house in 2016, so I guess you can say almost 7 years now.
Awesome. So, Javier, what really inspired you to become a real estate investor and a loan officer, and how you get started?
So yeah, I was on a path to become a financial advisor, and I kind of just realized that, to me personally, I wasn't too passionate about it, and I didn't like the corporate world so much. And I wanted more flexibility of in my schedule. In 2016 we just had our daughter, our first daughter. So then I said, hey, I want to move over to something that gives me more control of my time. And we had just bought a home and gone through that process, right? So I said, hey, I like real estate. Like, I think I could be good at this. I looked into becoming a realtor, but obviously with my background in banking and finance, as I said, loan officer was the natural transition to that. So, being a loan officer since 2017 and just learning about the business, how to scale. I actually have a good friend. His name is Cassidy Burns. He's a real estate investor himself. And he kind of gave me ideas and showed me like kind of how he had done it, right? And then I started to realize that like that's how most people do it anyway. Right. And then it kind of just became a thing that I started doing. And I realized that by investing in real estate, I can have control of my time, get passive income, get extra retirement accounts. I see every home as a potential retirement account. So when I want to retire one day, I can sell it, get a big chunk of money. I can use it to pay for my daughter's college. I have 2 kids. I can even pass it on to them, right? So I think that real estate just allows me personally to build generational wealth. I don't come from a wealthy family or a wealthy background. My parents are immigrants. I mean, I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here when I was 15 years old, 20 years ago. So, I'm trying to build something for my family and my kids, grandkids, and so on that I didn't have. My parents, I mean, they're hardworking people. I was not born poor. I was just regular middle class. But I know that there's certain advantage that people have. And I'm trying to put my family going forward in a position where they have those advantages.
Awesome. Yeah, something we always talk about here in this podcast and with my other realtors and industry experts is that it's all about generational wealth, right? You can never lose in real estate. And it's majority of millionaires own real estate, right? Real estate is really something that's is always going to keep growing. Well, there's always going to be setbacks, of course. But with that being said, how is it? Do you have an investment property, right?
I have 4 investment properties and 1 primary residence. Yeah.
Awesome. So how was that experience on getting your first investment property? What was the pros and cons of it? Like, can you sort of touch base on like the setbacks and like, all the challenges you had to face too?
Yeah. So, and I think we're going to talk about this too. The first investment property I personally bought, I bought, putting 20% down on it. I already had a primary residence, and I can tell you about the strategies of how I think it should be done later. But for us personally, we put 20% down on the property. It's located in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It's a house that for college students at James Madison University. So it's a 4-bedroom townhouse style condo, and that house is rented by the room. One of the challenges that I had was that I decided to self-manage, and being that's a home that's rented by the room, it's kind of being a lot of work. Just because you basically have, I mean, it's one house, but you have 4 individual leases, right? So it's a lot more managing because you're managing each person individually. A lot of these people are young kids. They're not really financially responsible. So, and then when somebody moves, you got to find a new tenant. It's been kind of challenging, but literally today is the first month that I have transitioned at home, and I'm now renting the whole house. So I have one lease. I don't deal with utilities anymore, and they're just going to be making one person is going to be making the monthly payments to me, and that's how I have another house, and that's the easiest and cleanest way for me to do it.
So house hacking, right? Is
Well, it's not house hacking. They are house hacking, right?
ah
Not really. So in reality, these are 4 friends. They say, hey, we want to rent your house. I said, cool, but I'm not renting it by the room. So like, you guys,
okay.
all 4 of you guys can be on the lease. You have to set up utilities under your name, and this is how much you're going to pay me every month, right? Before, I was doing it by the room to random people because I just needed the rooms rented. Because see, the house is in a college town, right? So most houses in that college town, they're rented by the room. There's a big property management company there, and that's kind of how they do it. So that's how people expect it to be done, right? And I had people graduating or moving in and out at different semesters. So I always had people going in and out because of that, right? Some guy will, 2 people will start in the fall, some people will start in the winter semester. So it was complicated, but now that I've put everybody in one lease, that's how I'm going to keep it, because it just makes my life a lot easier.
And can you say that this has been a successful investment strategy? And do you see it evolving over time, or?
Yeah, no, it's been a good investment for me. I mean, the cash flow now is probably like almost $1,000 a month. So it's really good. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's been a great investment, and it was my first one, so I had to learn through it. Personally, I think that I would not do any more student housing unless I have somebody fully managing it. But that's just simply because it just takes too much work to manage 4 people. I mean, I could be managing 4 houses that each cash flow me $1,000 a month, rather than managing 4 people that pay $500 a month each, right? Because the cash flow per room is not going to be as great as if I'm just managing a whole house, right?
Actually, that's like, I took out my notebook here because this is an investment strategy I never really heard of, which is student. What was it called again? If you
It's
remind me.
student housing, right? A lot of people
Asking
do it. A lot of people do it and like it, but they have a property manager. For me, I don't have enough houses where like I really care to have a property manager, so I self-manage my houses right now. But honestly, even if I did, I experience with it, and I personally don't like it. Don't like student housing, because when you do a student housing, not only are you renting the home usually per room, but on top of that, you're normally, as the owner of the home, you're covering utilities with a cap, right? So it's, if you guys don't use more than $100 in electricity, I have to pay for it, right? More than $50 in water, then you pay for it. If you use under, I pay for it, right? So then it was just a lot more work. So I personally now is the only thing I'm gonna focus on is short-term rentals, long-term rentals, but to families, and eventually, more multi-families. And then I think one of our goals is to buy a building one day. But that's kind of down the line.
Awesome. Well, yeah, there was a similar investment strategy that I know of. It's called sober home living or sober living home, something like that. I think I was watching a Pace Morby podcast. It
Yeah, I
was
have
like,
a friend that does
uh
that actually, right?
yeah.
So you buy houses. It's one of my friends that does it. He does it with two of his other friends. They're just buying houses and they're finding these companies that do the sober homes, but they rent the house to the sober company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they just get paid directly by them. So there's no really any managing, because one company really manages and just pays the rent to them. So I think that's a really good strategy too.
Ah, well, keep that in mind. So, I think my itching question would be touching base on the first one that I asked is, how do you approach financing your real estate investments, and what advice do you have for new investors that are trying to get into this area?
So I'm in a different situation because I had my first house, then I have my current house where I'm at right now. It's I'm in the suburbs. I'm in Haymarket, Virginia. We have a big property, and the house I'm at is probably gonna be our forever home, or if anything, one day we'll move near here just because we want more land.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my investment strategy is different, right? Because I already have the house that I live at. So every investment property that I want to buy, I need to put at least 20% down for it to make sense. However, if I'm a new investor, and this is really what I wish somebody told me, like, shoot, when I was 10 years ago, let's say, right? When I got out of college, buy a house, make that your primary residence, house hack it, live there for a little bit, and then go and buy another house. See, because when you're a new investor, a lot of times you may not have 20% to put down. So what you can do is you can buy a house as a primary residence. Say that you just got out of college, you just got a job. Instead of renting, because that's what I did, me and friends were paying $2,500 a month in rent to somebody else. I could have bought a house, they would have came and lived with me, and they would have been paying my mortgage, right? So buy a house using primary residence financing. If you use primary residence financing, you can put sometimes nothing down. You could even put 3% down,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's very little. Now, for the sake of this, explaining this to people, say that the first house that you buy is a $500,000 home. You decide to put 5% down. That's $25,000, right? You can live in that home for 1 year only, right? And then you can move and then buy another home. So your first home now becomes an investment property, right? You can rent it out and you can get cash flow from it. So if a new investor, that's the easiest way to pick up an investment property. Buy a home using primary residence financing, live there for a year, and then move out. Now you have a $500,000 property and you only spend $25,000 to get it.
Mm.
If I wanted to buy a house, I cannot use primary residence financing because I already have a primary residence that I am not moving out of, right? So if I want to buy that same house, I need to go put $100,000 down, right? But if you wanted to buy that house,
Mm.
for example, you can buy it as a first-time home buyer, put in 5% down. You can live there for a year, and then you can go and buy another house. And you can do this up to 10 times. Right? So you can do this time after time after time. I mean, shoot, with the same $100,000 that I will need to use to buy one of those houses, a new investor could buy 4 houses within 4 years.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah,
That
people
is.
don't think about this, right? People just say, oh, I'm going to buy a primary residence and then it has to be the perfect house because that's where I'm going to live, right? If
Mm.
I had known about this strategy, I wouldn't have cared where I live, because when we were renting, we just rented what was convenient, right? I would
Mm.
have found whatever house had the better returns. I would have bought putting as little money down as possible. I would have stayed there for a year and I would have done it again and make that a rental until eventually, we had to settle somewhere, right? But it's literally just rinse and repeat until
Uh,
this is how you acquire as many properties as possible with as little cash as possible, right? I mean, shoot, if you were to do this 10 times, which is the maximum of a primary resident, or loans that you can have under your name,
mm-hmm.
right? So 10 times, you could basically own $5 million in real estate, right? If
Wow.
each property you buy is 500,000, with
Mm-hmm.
only $250,000 invested.
Wow.
Like, where can you get that kind of leverage?
Nah. And not to mention equity as well, right? Because every home appreciates, and let's say you decide to sell it, right, or whatever, you get, like you say, let's say you bought it for 180,000, and then it appreciates to 300,000. What if you sell that property, and then I don't know if I think there's a tax deduction. I think it was the 1031 exchange.
Yeah, so you could do that, but see, like for me, I mean, 1031 exchange is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so for me, if I'm doing the strategy that I just mentioned, right, like you're literally only spending 250,000, right, to control 5 million of real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Say that you keep that for like 30 years. Say that you do this, you started at 23, by the time you're 35, you have all these houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of you live in one of them, the other 9 are going to be rented and paid by somebody else. In 30 years, the average retirement age is 64 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 30 years, when you're around retirement age, all of those houses will be paid off, and they will all have appreciated. So say that those houses double in value over 30 years, right? Now you invested 250,000 over 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're in your 60s, you have $10 million worth of real estate free and clear.
Wow.
You know, like where can you get that kind of return, right? You put 250,000 in the stock market in 30 years, you're not getting $10 million.
Mm-hmm. But everything is real estate. Yeah, the for stock market is not. It's unpredictable. The stock market is really unpredictable. So getting to that 10 mil over the years, and not really.
Well, the stock market and real estate are unpredictable, but I feel like real estate is just going to get you a better return, right? Like you
Okay.
said, it can have up and downs, but like anything, like the stock market or real estate, right? It always moves like this, up and down, up and down. But the chart always goes that way. You never see the real estate or the stock market chart go down and they stay down and continue to go down, right? So even through the up and downs, if you hold long term, you're going to be on the top right of the chart, which is where you want to be.
Hmm. Oh. Well, thank you for the valuable information. And now we actually stepped into our first game show, something I do every time just to know you as a person better. And I like to call it the two truths and a lie. So right now I have a 8 loss streak. So I've been not doing so good in guessing which one is a lie. So yeah, this is where I guess which one is a lie for you, and yeah, I feel
Uh,
good this time.
so you want, okay, so you want 3 things, so you're going to pick which one, 2 true and then 1 lie, right?
Yeah, I gotta guess on which one is the lie.
Okay, I originally from Mexico. I am a professional downhill mountain biker.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, I already messed up because I already told you 2 lies. So
I mean, yeah, based on what you told me yesterday, I knew the first one was a
yeah, I
lie.
know you did the first one and then the
I
second
knew
one. So I
that.
already told you 2 lies. All right.
I didn't know what the second was a lie, so you could have tricked me with that
Yeah,
one.
I could trick you, but I'm an honest person.
Okay.
All right. So I used to be a boxer.
Okay.
Um, I came here when I was 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and me and my wife have been together for 9 years.
Oh, 9 years. That's a lot. But yeah, of course, the second one is a lie because you told me it was 15 years. You were 15 years when you came here.
Yeah,
So
well, there you go. You already gave it away anyway.
you. Well, yeah. Moving on to that.
Well, I thought about that, but I guess I told
Uh,
you 20 years ago. But yeah, well, you got me. There you go.
yeah, I got you there. Well, not to get back on track. What are the important market trends that you follow to be informed about investment decisions?
So I kind of have my own investment strategy, right? So there are certain markets in my area that I'm familiar with. I haven't ventured into like exploring areas like that I'm not familiar with because I'm in real estate and the real estate investing is great. But what really allows me to make the income so that I can buy this investment, it's my career, it's my job, right? It's a loan officer. So like I am not so deep into exploring so many different options yet. simply because I'm trying to continue acquiring capital through my income as a loan officer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that one day I will venture into exploring more stuff. So my strategy is very simple. I invest in areas that me and my family like to go to. So like we have a house in the other banks, we have a house in the Snowshoe, we're looking for a house in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, right? Those are areas that I know are good markets for short-term rentals. So I kind of focus on that, and then I just look at the numbers. I use there's a website called AirDNA that will tell you how every property in a specific zip code performs as a short-term rental, and based on those numbers, I know whether or not the house will be a good investment or not. That's when it comes to short-term rentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to long-term rentals, I mean, to me, it's simple. As long as I can get my money back within 4 years by cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
I'll buy the house.
Okay, so for long-term rentals, you're looking for a return in 4 years.
I want 100% return in 4 years, not included, and that's just on cash flow, right? That doesn't include equity, pay down, appreciation, none of that, right? To me, that's just gravy on top, right? I want my cash flow to pay me back in 4 years.
Cash flow. And then for short terms, when are you looking into to get a 100% return on cash flow?
I
Or
guess similar time, but I mean, for short term, I want to make sure. See, I like buying houses in places that me and my family like to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not very like I don't depend on that income. So as long as the house is at least paying itself, I only buy in markets that I know are gonna appreciate, right? So like as long as I know the house is paying for itself, I'm okay with it, because I get a house that me and my family get to use whenever we want to make long-term memories, right, with our kids. I'm not really paying for it because the house is paying for itself. I also only buying areas that I know it's going to appreciate. So I'm getting the appreciation and I'm literally getting the equity pay down by the people that rent it. And on top of that, I'm getting tax benefits, right? I get huge tax breaks because I own short-term rentals. So in short-term rentals, like, I mean, cash flow is nice and it's gravy, but that's not really my focus, right? Because I'm thinking long-term. Like, I don't think short-term. Like, a lot of people, when they're getting into real estate investing, they're looking for a short-term return, right? They want a quick buck. Like, real estate is not a short-term game; it's a long-term game, and you just have to realize that, right? And as long as you're going with that mindset, you're going to be fine. I know a lot of people say, oh, I did this, I scaled my business, I did all of that, right? That's all great and good, but for most people, it's not going to be that way, right? That's the reality of it. So you just have to know that you're in it for the long haul, right? Like,
yeah. Real estate it's a long-term game. But there's a common. I think something that's not really mentioned is real estate is good, but also the amount of connections you build, right? Because it's also very important to surround yourself with people who are similar minded like you, right? Have the similar goals. So my question for you will be is, how do you build and maintain a strong network, like a strong connection, a strong network with people who are like investors, just like yourself, when you're trying to learn and grow? How do you build a connection and reach out to them?
a lot of that just on social media, to be honest. I have people reaching out to me. If I see somebody make a post about some creative thing that they did, I reach out to them to kind of get an idea. I write down, like, I mean, people I put out content on social media. Other people put out content on social media, right? I saved it on my phone. Like, in the Instagram lets you save videos. So I have topics that I'm interested in. And if I see somebody give good as information, I save it in that topic. And if it's something that I really want to remember, I write it down so that I make sure to remember to go back to it. Right? Because I mean, there's a lot of good people out there that put good information to just give you ideas. So I think that's kind of what I do. And I also have mentors, I have friends that have several properties that I can always go to for advice, right? And I think that having a mentor, it's great and it's super, super important.
And with that being said, is how, like, when you're first investing on a property, when you first go into an investment property, do you recommend going with a partner, like let's say a joint venture or JV deal, or how do you like you probably mentioned this already, but how do you advise a new investor to go into a property? Do you expect them to go into property with someone else who already knows what they're doing, or to completely go by themselves and experience all the
Well,
troubles
it
by themselves
depends
and then
what you're
only?
trying to do, right?
Mhm,
So like for me, my advice is to not do a JV at first. Just buy a house that you're going to live in, and then
mhm,
you make that a rental property because you can buy that house with very little money, right?
mhm,
Now, if you wanted to buy, like, say you already own a house, because see, a lot of people, they don't know this strategy, right? Because most
mhm,
people are just thinking, I'm gonna buy a house where I'm gonna live at, right? That's how I was thinking before. That's why I bought this house before I bought all my investment properties. Had I known about this strategy, I wouldn't have bought this house. I would have bought a bunch of investment properties, lived there for a year, then move and kept moving, and then eventually I will buy my final house, right? Um,
mhm,
so for me, I don't do any JVs. I mean, I work, I make the money, we save all my wife's income, and then we use her income to go and buy houses, literally, right? So my goal is to buy like a house a year, basically. Um, Now, if I wanted to like scale, maybe buy like a building or something like that, yeah, maybe I will do a JV. It just really depends. I think there are a lot of good options out there, but see, what I kind of, and I talk to a lot of investors because my Instagram now, a lot of investors reach out to me, right?
mhm,
But my advice is always the same. Like, stop trying to play a real estate investor when you're a renter, right? Like you're renting and then you want to go buy an investment property and you're trying to find all these creative ways on like how you're going to go and buy an investment property. Dude, just go find a first-time home buyer program, buy a house for yourself, and stop paying rent to people like me. I want you to keep renting because you're paying my rent, right? But my mortgage, but like stop paying rent to people like me. Just stop trying to play these little games, trying to get all creative and trying to invest money. No, just buy a house for yourself, right? And then once you do that, then you can scale, make the, like I said, make the house a rental and then move on. If maybe you bought a house and an opportunity presents itself, you don't have the cash, yeah, maybe you consider taking a JV, right?
mhm.
But like I'm just so, and I know I keep saying this because to me that's just like the easiest way to do it. Like I talk to so many people and they're like, I heard this story, or I heard of doing this, or I heard of doing that. And I'm like, that's just overcomplicating things. Like literally, you have access to talk to somebody like me. I'm a loan officer, right? Say,
Mhm.
hey, I want to buy this $300,000 house. You can buy that $300,000 house with $9,000, and that can easily become your first investment property, right? A lot
Mm.
of people are just spinning their wheels, trying to overthink too much. Just go and buy the damn house, you know? Like,
Yeah. And for this, do you recommend like partnering up with the realtor to help you find these houses and
yeah,
find you these to these
I
programs? Or
definitely recommend partnering up with a realtor, right? Like, a lot of people say, oh, I don't like the realtor. I don't want to pay the realtor. Why would I pay a realtor, right? To me, honestly, like the realtors are great because they're literally going to do all the groundwork for you, right? So like when I'm looking for investment property, I mean, I have friends that are agents that I work with, and they know, they're like, hey, if you see something off market that could be a good deal, let me know. I may buy it, I may not buy it, I may not do anything with it, but I'm always curious to know of potential opportunities, right? I mean, that's how I bought one of my houses. A realtor friend just say, like, I wasn't even looking at the time, right? That's not where my mind was. And a realtor friend just says, hey, I had this guy was gonna buy this house, he's not buying it. These are the numbers. Do you want to buy it? Putting an offer that same day, and I bought it. Right, like 3 weeks later, I closed on the house. So like,
mm,
I don't. I think realtors are a crucial part of the business.
awesome, awesome. And now as a loan officer, I was curious on the difference between a secured and an unsecured loan. What is the difference between the two of them? If you could sort of break that down for me.
Yeah, so a secure loan is a loan that's secured by like something, right? I mean, if all mortgages are secured because they're secured by property,
Mm,
right? But in general, a secure loan, like a hard money lender, for example, what they may do is they're always going to secure their loan with property, right? An unsecured loan, it's kind of like a personal loan. It's
mhm,
something that's not tied to anything, right? So there's no lien on it. Like If you go and get an unsecured loan, or like a personal line of credit, or just a personal loan at a bank, that's an unsecured loan if there's no collateral tied to it. A secure loan is when there's collateral tied to it, because if you don't pay, they can always go after the collateral.
Ah, okay. And that's like when it's secure. Let's say you have a property under that loan. Can the bank take that property because it's as a collateral, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't pay your mortgage, the bank can foreclose the house for you.
Ah. Oh, well, thank you for that. And now moving on to the last two questions. But finish this off is, how do you balance risk and reward when making a real estate investment decision?
So that's a challenge that a lot of people have. There's always risk on everything that you do, right? So I would say, well, I'm very aggressive and I like to bet on myself, and I'm always like, I'm gonna figure it out because if I don't figure it out, my kids don't eat, right? So I'm always gonna figure it out. I don't care what anybody says, I'm always gonna figure it out one way or another, right? Because that's just what it is. Not everybody has that grit, not everybody thinks that way. So my advice is to always make sure that, so say that you have your living expenses. Especially if you're new and inexperienced, do not take from what you need to survive to invest, thinking that the return of investment will be guaranteed, because that's how people start themselves to that, right? I mean, say that you need $10,000 a month to live. I mean, that's a lot of money, but I'm just saying that's a number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you decide to start investing $2,000 a month, thinking that 2,000 is going to get you 2,000 back. So now you'll be at 12,000 a month, right? Well, guess what? If you lose your ass and you lose those $2,000 a month, now you only have 8 a month. How are you going to live, right? So do not overinvest yourself with money. Do not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. I guess that's that's my advice. But also, you just need to stop overthinking, because there's a problem that I had for many years. A lot of people, especially new investors, they are too focused on finding great deals. If the deal is not a home run, people are not taking action. I missed on so many opportunities looking for home runs because I got lucky. My first deal was a home run. So then I got spoiled. I said, I'm not going to buy another house until the numbers are as good as this one, because if they're not, it's not a good investment. I passed on house after house after house. 6 months to a year later, most of those deals that I passed on became home runs. All I had to do was hit a single a year before, but I decided not to do it because I wanted a home run off the bat. Eventually it became a home run and I missed out. Right? Yeah. So I would just say you just got to take action.
That kind of sparked up another question in my head. Of course, when you as an investor, when you buy a property, what are some hidden expenses because I know there's cash flow, and then there's the, well, I like to call it the ghost cash flow, right? Because it looks good on paper, but then when you put in the HVAC, the maintenance, all the other stuff, the repairs, what are the hidden expenses that investors should be aware of when they're buying a property? What am I asking?
I mean, there's always going to be little things, right? Like there's going to be regular maintenance, like you gotta pay the HVAC person to maintain the units. Personal example, a tenant called me yesterday, said, hey, the microwave broke, right? So I spent $300 buying the microwave. Sometimes I had to replace the mailbox lock at one of the houses I have. So there's always smaller stuff that are going to come up. I mean, one time I think I'm trying to remember, I had a washer break one time. I had to get the washer replaced. My beach house needed a new dishwasher. There's always things that will come up, but that's just part of the game, right? What people don't, one of the reasons why I know a lot of people don't want to invest in real estate is because they're like, I don't want to be a landlord, right? I don't want to deal with a call at 3 a.m, right? Nobody's ever called me at 3 a.m. right? Like that's not really a thing, and it's not nearly as difficult as people think it is to like manage property,
Hmm.
right? So, I don't. There's some hidden like things, but it's all usually maintenance related.
Mhm.
But that's just part of the game, right? I don't care if I have some extra expense simply because from my cash flow, I don't touch the cash flow from my investment properties. I keep it. Like I just use it so I can reinvest it, right?
Mm.
So if I have hidden expense, I have the money there for me to use it, and I already know that it's just going to be part of the game, right? And that's just what it is.
Awesome. Now, moving on to the last question. Is just talk about you. Is can you share like a story of a challenging investment experience that and a lesson that you learned from it? I know you touched based on a lot, but is there one in particular that you feel like really impacted you and made you who you are as of now?
Yeah, I think it really touched to like stop overthinking and just buy it. If something sounds like it could be a good deal and you're in a position to afford it, just do it, right? This really bugs me. And like, I mean, I talk about it sometimes, but like when people ask me, like a question like what you just did, um, in 2020, I had a house in the other, me and my wife were vacationing in the other banks with our daughter. We only had one kid at the time. And we've been going to the other banks for a couple of years. So we decided we want to buy a house, we want to buy a beach house, right? We found what we thought was the perfect house for us. Um, the realtor I was working with at the time kind of said, hey, the house is not a rental. These are the numbers that I think the house could make. I didn't like the numbers. It was going to be like my second investment property. I was nervous. I didn't like the numbers. I said, well, what if like the house loses money? There was a chance that the house was going to lose about 10 grand a year. I could have afforded to take a 10 grand a year loss. But I was nervous, so I didn't do it, right? I said, no, I'm going to wait. Had I done my research, I would have realized that the house could have made more money and covered that 10 grand a year deficit that I was afraid of. But the most important lesson I learned from that was that, not taking action. Because a year and a half ago, I bought my beach house, another beach house. I ended up paying more money than what that house cost. My house has one less bedroom and no pool. The other house had 5 bedrooms and a pool. My house has 4 bedrooms and it had no pool at the time, right? Mm-hmm. But that's where the market was, and that's the house that I could find. Like I needed to buy a house really quickly because I knew the rates were about to go up. So that was the best house available. So that's the house I bought. I have since I invested, 6 figures to putting a pool on the house and like make the house better than the other house I was going to buy. But this is the kicker. I have invested a lot more money in my house now to make it better, when I could have just bought that house and it'll be worth the same or more than my house is worth now. Because 3 months after I bought my house and put in my pool, and I'll tell you the numbers, right? I could have bought that house for $500,000 in 2020. I decided to not buy it, right? Mm-hmm. I bought my house for $580,000. I spent $100,000 in the pool, so I'm all in. I'm at $680,000. My house is now worth $750,000, right? This is a house I have in the other banks. 3 months after I bought my house for $580,000, the house I could have bought for $500,000 sold for $725,000.
Wow.
So that means that in 2.5 years, like I could have gained like $200,000 in equity, right? So I could have bought the house for $500,000. It's probably not worth the $725,000, and I didn't even have to put in a pool, right? The house that I own cost me $580,000, and I had to spend $100,000 of my own money to put in a pool. Had I just taken action about the first house, I could have used the $100,000 to buy another house. And I will have all that equity, right? So like I have equity from my house now, so and it's fine, it's doing great, and it's a good investment. But I'm never gonna forget that like I could have a lot more equity and a lot of my cash left had I just bought the one house. But I just didn't do it because honestly, I was too scared to do it, and I didn't take action.
Get it, guys. Always take action, right? Never be afraid of the unknown,
Yeah,
right?
and if you're not sure, don't talk to one person. If one person's not confirming what you're trying to figure out, talk to more people. Like, you know, not that like, so talk to other people that have done what you're trying to do. If like there's something that you want to do and you're not getting the answer that you want to hear, but in the back of your mind, you're like, man, but I heard other people do it. I think I could do it too. Maybe go and talk to another person. It won't hurt you to just have a conversation with one more person to find out. No, if 2 or 3 people are confirming, hey, listen, it's not a good idea, then don't do it. Right? But by talking to more people, somebody else could give you another idea and maybe it will make sense to do it. I only talk to the one realtor. Have I maybe talked to 2 other people that own houses in that area? They may have said to me, no, don't worry about it. Buy that house. This is what I do. And the house is going to cash flow. You'll be fine. Or, hey, you're going to appreciate. So don't even think about it. Just buy it. Maybe I will have bought it. Right. But I didn't ask enough questions. And I mean, sure, that cost me $200,000, because I didn't buy the house.
I'm sorry to bother you again, but since what I do, since I like to talk to realtors and investors and try to push realtors to work with more investors, because investors like you are looking for someone who knows properties, know the back end work. I think my question for you will be is, what should a realtor let you know about a property? Like, what do you expect? Like, what do you want to? Let's say in an ideal world, you had a realtor that tells you everything you need to know. What does that realtor have to tell you exactly about a property for you to invest into it? What do you expect of the realtor?
I'm not going to live in the houses
Mm-hmm.
and people need shelter. I just need to know the numbers.
Oh, and what type of numbers are you
The
looking for?
returns. I just need the returns.
Just the returns.
Yeah,
Got
I
you.
mean, like whether it's a 1 bedroom condo or a 7 bedroom house, right? Somebody needs to. There are people that are going to need the 7 bedrooms. There are people that are going to need the 1 bedroom, right? So as long as the numbers work based on them, I mean, but it's different. Like in some markets, maybe a 1 bedroom doesn't do well because they don't rent for much. So maybe you don't buy a 1 bedroom, right? So I just need the numbers, right? I need the numbers so I know whether or not it's a good deal. I am not necessarily focused on any specifics. I don't have a list of, oh, I need whatever house I buy or invest in to have all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the numbers work, I'll buy anything. I'm just focused on the numbers. That's it.
So, oh, thank you for all that valuable information. Definitely learned a lot today. Um, where can the people find you and on what social platforms?
Yeah, so I'm really just in Instagram. I have Facebook. I think my Facebook's just Javier Gonzalez. My Instagram is Javier underscore Gonzalez the third, and that's just 3 I's. So Javier underscore Gonzalez I. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much about it. I am, I'm actually working on the podcast that I'm gonna be doing later on. It's gonna be called Flip the Switch. I actually want to have you on because I'm fascinated by your story, by the way. Knowing how young you are and what you're doing. So I definitely, when I set my podcast up, I'm gonna have you as a guest because I really like your mindset, your hustle, and the fact that you do this. So it's that's why when you told me more about you specifically, I was like, oh, I definitely want to be on your podcast because I can see where you're going, and I like to befriend people that have a similar mindset and they're just gonna put their head down and work. Because if you put in the work, nobody can deny you, right? You want to be undeniable, you want to be successful, just do the work, right? Doors may close in front of your face, it doesn't matter. You keep working, you open your own door. People don't want you to sit at the table, you keep working, you bring your own table, right? And you're doing it at, can you, if the people watching this don't know this, how old are you? Can you tell them?
I'm 17 years old. I'm
I mean,
17.
17 years old, right? Like that says everything. Told you when I was with my buddy yesterday when you called me, and you blew my mind when you told me you were 17. And literally, once we got off the phone, I told my boy, I said, this fucking kid's 17 years old. I guarantee you in like 10 years, he's going to be a millionaire. Because he's doing this at 17 years old.
Yes. That's hopefully that's the mindset. I
No,
build my
speaking it into existence for you, man. Because no 17 years old is doing this. Nobody.
yeah. I mean, already thankfully I have amazing realtors that when I hopefully turn 18, I buy my first investment property. Hopefully, if all this thing goes well, just go from there. And I'd love to be on your podcast. By the way, I'm just so excited right now. Just
Yeah,
trying to
when the
control
time
my
comes, man, when I there's a lot more things
yeah.
that to work on. I'll probably actually hit you up for some tips because I never write a podcast, so I'll probably reach out to you. But when the time comes, man, I'll have you on.
Awesome. Well, guys, remember, like and subscribe, and check out my other investor video. Go sort of touch base on and build your knowledge about investing in real estate, as well as some realtors that actually do real estate investment properties and Airbnbs. So make sure to check that out. Amazing people, and check out Javier's page. His links will be in the description below. And other than that, have a great day, guys.